Ladies, we're ready.
Good morning.
Congratulations, when are you due? Good day. Well, good day. My name is Daniel Bennett. It's great to have you join us. And we've got a fun episode for you today. I want to talk about the benefits of new experiences and kind of trying new things. Before we get to that though, I do want to encourage you to go to gooddaygtn.com and get your free booklet, your free copy of How to Become a Water Walker by Andrew Wommack. If you haven't gone there yet, I encourage you to check it out. Again, you can get it free digitally or a physical copy shipped to you. And so, I also encourage you to check out our phone number, 719-635-1111. If you give us a call, if you want to partner with us or sow into this ministry, or if you need prayer or want to know more about other resources or things like that, you can contact us. I also encourage you to consider, if you haven't come to 𝗺𝗺 Bible College, I encourage you to consider that this upcoming fall. We have a new school year starting in August, and so there's still time to get preparations. If you don't live locally, you could still find a campus and look into that, 𝗺𝗺BibleCollege.org. So anyway, today's episode, I want to talk about, I want to do a quick little topical study on heroism, and then we will get to new experiences. And I want to encourage you in some things. To me, this is one of the things that's really helped me grow more quickly in life. And so I want to give you all some tips and explain kind of the value of it and how to make the most of it. But first, I want to start with 3 quotes, and then I'll do 3 scriptures on being heroic. So the first one is by Arthur Ashe. First quote, he says, "True heroism is remarkably sober, very undramatic. It is not the urge to surpass all others at whatever cost, but the urge to serve others at whatever cost." The urge to serve others at whatever cost, that really is what it's all about. Is, Jesus said, no greater love that has, I'll get to that here in a minute. But the greatest love you can have for others is to lay down your life for them. And that doesn't always just mean dying, but laying down your life and saying, I'm going to do things at my expense for you. Another quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson. He says, "A hero is no braver than an ordinary man, but he is brave 5 minutes longer." I don't think this is scientific, but I think the point here is that if you can just stick it out a little bit longer, then you do things that other people, they gave up just a little bit too soon, and you just stay courageous and selfless, a little bit more than other people. It'll lead to you doing amazing things for others. This last one, Brody Ashton, says, "Heroes are made by the paths they choose, not the powers they are graced with." If you run into a burning building and you trip and fall, that's not as heroic as if you run in there and you rescue and carry out a whole bunch of people, right? And so there's a skill level that's part of it, but really it comes down to selflessness, right? Are you making decisions to put others above yourself? And really, I think it goes beyond making decisions in the moment. I think true heroism is also when you make decisions when it doesn't matter, like if a firefighter works out and stays in good shape, that doesn't look heroic when they're working out, but it allows them to be stronger so they can rescue more people later. And so really, it's not just in the moment. I mean, it's both. In the moment, you make that decision, but it's also the decisions you made when nobody cared, but you created an opportunity where it's like, I'm going to invest in myself so that I know how to save people later. And so I think it's in the moment, again, the choices that we make lead to it. So 3 scriptures that are related to doing heroic things. John 15, verse 13 says, "Greater love has no one than this, than to lay down one's life for his friends." Right? And Jesus said this right before giving his life for us. So again, think about it. He's saying he couldn't love us more than he does. He loves us the most ultimate way that you possibly can, which is pretty cool. Psalm 144, verse 1. "Blessed be the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle." And maybe in the future I'll do a message on the military or things like that. But we talk so much about God, equipping us for worship and for loving others and showing compassion to others. But in the Old Testament even, you'd see David saying, "He trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle." I mean, God, whatever it is you need to do, God can train you to do that. And so even if it's putting your life in danger, back then, nowadays in the new covenant, we don't need to, we don't go to war to fight people on behalf of Jesus' kingdom, right? His kingdom's in the spirit. If you're called to be in the military, that's different. But again, even then, it's like God can anoint us to do what we need to do. Psalm 68, verse 20 says, "Our God is the God of salvation, and to God the Lord belong escapes from death." Right? And I kind of thought this one tied into heroism because, to God alone belong escapes from death, or to God the Lord belong escapes from death, is that those, God can rescue us from anything, right? Now, that doesn't mean that God's the one killing people and doing all these disasters. I mean, we have a lot of teaching on that stuff already, on what sovereignty really means and all that, but saying, look, God can save you, right? God makes a way of escape. So if you're in a desperate situation, I mean, if all else fails, ask God for help. Because He's the God of salvation, and not just in eternity, but even in moments, we can reach out to Him for help. So we're going to talk now about the benefits of new experiences and trying new things. Before we get to that, though, we're going to show you this quick little promo, and we'll be right back.
Life comes with all kinds of storms. But when your boat is sinking, you might want to step out and learn how to be a water walker. Log on to GoodDayGTN.com to get your free copy today.
Awesome. Well, welcome back. And I'm going to be sharing about the benefits of new experiences. Before I get to that, though, I had a random story come to mind that I wanted to share. This show is a little bit different than the other shows, where in this one, if something goes wrong, we typically just roll with it. Something falls over, or if I mess up, they say, we're not going to edit it, just leave it right there. But I remember one time years ago, one of the first times I was being filmed for a course at 𝗙𝗵𝗵, right before I went on stage to go teach, I was talking to somebody in a hallway, and there's this big pillar right next to me, and I didn't realize there was a trash can that was already pressed against my foot. And so I was turning to go walk around this pillar. It was like a sharp one, like a square thing. And so I tripped because there was a trash can next to my foot, and I just slammed my head, like right here somewhere. I just slammed my head so hard, and it didn't make a noise. That's how, how when you hit your head on something, if it doesn't move at all, it means all the impact went to your head. And so it made me dizzy, and it was incredibly, incredibly painful. But I looked in the mirror, and it was just a little bit red. But then I went, and I was being filmed teaching a course. I did 2 hours of that, and then when I got back, I looked in the mirror, and I didn't realize I had like swelled up, and it was like it broke the skin and was bleeding. And so I was like, there's video of me getting on stage right after hitting my head, and then little by little, if you're watching the video, you little by little see my head start to swell up and the skin to break and the whole deal. And so I'm no novice when it comes to things going wrong on filming. But on that note, again, because talking about new experiences, when you do new things, there's a chance things could go wrong, but I still think it's worth it. And I want to share some of the benefits of doing new things, trying new things. And I may have shared this in the past, but when I was a teenager, I had a thought once. I always liked to think about life and kind of just have deeper conversations with God. And so I remember, the saying, you can't take it with you, right? Sometimes people say that is basically when you die, at the end of your life, all your possessions just stay here, right? You go on to heaven, hopefully. If you're born again, you will. And all your things, everything you accumulated stays behind. You can't take anything with you. And that didn't really hit me until once, it's like, someone passes away and people start distributing their things. And I was like, this is so weird. I always knew you don't take things with you, but it's kind of weird when it actually happens. And so anyway, I was thinking about this as a teenager, and I was like, if I can't take things with me, I'm going to make things very low priority in my life. Why would I dedicate my life to things that I can't take with me? But I realized there's two things I can take with me. So one thing I can take with me is other people. And so I realized I want to pour a lot of my life into things that will affect others and might affect the destinies and the eternities of other people, because I can't take things with me, but I can take people with me. Then the other thing I can take with me is me, right? I can't take my stuff, but I can take me. And so I realized, I want to invest in things that bless other people, and I want to invest in things that help me grow as a person. Because anything that helps me grow as a person, that will affect eternity, because I get to enter into eternity. And so those became two major priorities in my life. And I really have made my decisions in life, all my big decisions in life have been made through this filter, where I want to pursue experiences more than things. I would rather travel somewhere new instead of buy something new, things like that. Now, there's some balance to this also, but I want to focus on some of the benefits I've gained from just trying new things and going to a lot of different experiences, many times very quickly. I've shared in other ways some of the ways I was going about it the wrong way. Again, there's pros and cons and there's balance. But again, how do things help us grow? So I'm not going to focus as much in this message on blessing other people, but I was just giving that context. But I found that experiences really helped change me and help me grow as a person. And so I've pursued a lot of different types of experiences. I've lived in a lot of different countries. I've served in a lot of different ways. I've had a lot of different types of jobs. I've just tried, I like to do extreme things, right? Sometimes the more something sounds scary, the more I want to do it, where it's like, that sounds intense, I got to try that. And I've just done that a lot over the years. And so I've learned a few things about it. And so again, I'm not saying you should always stop what you're doing and do something else, but there are some benefits to it. But even then, I'd say I've tried a lot of short-term things, but I've also tried a lot of long-term things. And so even those can be new experiences. I used to always do things for, short-term, like 3 months, 1 year, things like that. And then, I'm in a season of life now where I like to commit to long-term things, where it's not about quantity of experiences, but depth of experiences. And so, there's many different things that this could mean, right? New experiences could mean new relationships, new friendships, new locations, new jobs, new environments, new cultures, new types of work, new hobbies, new interests, all kinds of stuff like that. For many people, starting over is scary. For me, it was actually the opposite. Staying in the same place for a long period of time was actually scary. I used to kind of be like, I hope I don't settle and just stop growing as a person. I need to find something new to do. So it was a leap for me when I started sticking around long term and actually like letting roots grow in a location. So everybody's kind of coming from a different background. But I want to encourage you to embrace new experiences for a few different reasons. So I have a handful of benefits of this. One of the first ones, or the first one I want to mention, is that new experiences give you a fresh start with people. What I mean by that is that new people don't know your past. And so when you go to a new place, you get to start fresh. They see you, they don't see you for who you were 5 years ago, 10 years ago. They see you for who you are right now. And so if you've grown and changed as a person, they don't have all this baggage of remembering like, oh, you're like this and you're like that and you're like that. They just see you for who you are. And so a fresh start really does let you start over. Where it's like you get to meet new people with your current personality, your current level of character, your current values, your current work ethic, different things like that. They see you for who you are right now. When a quick example, when I was growing up, I never yelled in my entire life. Now I love to yell. Just kidding. No, it just isn't my style. Personally, I don't yell in general, but I also think that it's very harmful in relationships to try and use volume to win an argument. So I just don't value that. I value peace and rationality, things like that. But I never really yelled. But then when I joined the military in boot camp, it's like, you've got to yell. And so I realized I kind of made this decision. I was like, you know what? I've never yelled. And if I yelled as loud as I'm going to need to yell for the military and in boot camp, the people who know me would all laugh at me and be like, what are you doing? But I was like, none of these people know that. I can just start fresh. None of these people know that I don't like yelling, so I'm just going to go for it. And so when I went, I just went for it. I made the decision in advance. They don't know this about me, so I'm just going to change, and no one will know the difference. And so I yell louder than anybody else there. And so what happened was, there were other guys who didn't want to yell, and people gave them a really hard time because they just kept struggling to raise their voice and be as loud as they needed to be. And no one messed with me just because I went for it. And so in a similar way, that's just a quick little illustration, but it can be like that with many things, with different things with your personality, with, different parts of your character or hobbies or interests, how you dress, how you talk, how you walk, the whole deal. If you have a fresh start with new people. See, what happens is that people who know you really well, sometimes they're the hardest people to accept that you've changed, right? If you say, for example, you have a really bad temper and then finally you get set free from it, but the people who know you really well are like, oh, you have such a bad temper. And you're like, I don't anymore. Oh, sure you do. I don't. Sure you do. I don't. It can be very hard for people who know you well to accept that you've changed and that you've grown. And so when you go somewhere new, it can be very liberating where it's like, these people don't know I used to, so they just see that I don't. And so I don't feel like I'm being put in a box. So that's one of the benefits of new experiences when you go to a new place or get a new job, right? You get a new job, people don't know how you did things before, they just know how you do things now. And so it can really help you grow faster because you're not being slowed down by everybody telling you who you used to be. Right? Even Jesus said in Matthew 13, verse 57, he said, the second half of that, he said, a prophet is not without honor except in his own country and in his own house. So he's saying, right, he's like, the people who knew me when I was growing up, they don't see me for who I am because they're so fixated on who I used to be. They saw me as a child, they saw me growing up, they saw me playing with their kids, they saw, familiarity breeds contempt, right? When they're so familiar with him as a child that they don't realize that right now he's preaching truth and that he's doing miracles. And so it's easier to be accepted for who you are right now if you have a fresh start. Even in the military sometimes, they told me once, they're like, when someone becomes a sergeant, we try to move them to a whole different unit. Because what happens is if there's a group of friends and they're all the same rank and then one of them gets promoted to sergeant, all the friends are like, oh, you're not a sergeant, you're just one of us. It's very hard for them to embrace their new leadership role. So in the military, many times they try to move them somewhere else so that the new people meet them and they're like, oh, this is my sergeant. Okay, you're the boss. And the new people, that way they don't have to struggle by saying like, we don't believe you. Like, you're just one of us. We used to joke around and all that. Now who do you think you are, that you think that you're our boss? And so it's easier to step into your new role when other people don't remember things from before. Even with marriage, now this isn't advice for everyone, but in marriage, one nugget of advice that I heard or a thought, it's more of a concept, doesn't apply to everybody or every situation, but I've even heard people say when you first get married, it's not a bad idea to move away for like 1 or 2 years. Because what happens, especially if one person's really attached to their family, is that what happens is that if you get married, all your friends and family, they'll still want to treat you the way you were when you were single. And so it can actually hold back you growing closer as a marriage, right? And the Bible says leave and cleave, right? You're supposed to leave your parents and cleave to your spouse. And so somebody's really attached to one of their parents, and then you get married, and they stay really attached. And if the parent is also like, well, no, our relationship won't change at all. Sometimes it can be helpful to move away because there people only know you as a married couple and you have some distance. And so that way when you move back to be near family, it's created some separation where you've had time to strengthen your own relationship instead of having other people kind of bombard it, right? Imagine, again, if you get married and all your friends, they want to treat you like you're still single. So they'll be like, hey, let's hang out every single night of the week and let's do all the fun hobby stuff we used to do every single day. And you're like, no, I've changed. I'll do that a little bit, but my priority now is my spouse. And so, I'm not saying that's not the main advice, but my point is simply sometimes a fresh start can help you move into a new season because other people, they won't hold you back. Let's see here real quick. Yeah, another tip on that note is that when you have a fresh start, when you move somewhere new, don't waste it. I mean, think to yourself, are there areas where I've grown, where I felt like other people are holding me back? Well, now that I'm moving into a new environment, what are some things that I've been wanting to really embrace and change about myself? That's actually one of the downsides of social media is that now you can move around the world and you still have your friends and family connected with every single thing that you're doing. And I find that it's harder to really embrace the benefits of a fresh start if you stay completely connected with where you came from. I mean, there's been times where I moved somewhere new and I wasn't making friends And finally, I realized it's because I'm spending so much time communicating with people back home that I'm not investing in these friends, these potential friends that are right in front of me. I was always living in the past. So again, I think it's important to be careful. I'm not saying all or nothing. You don't have to reject everybody from the past. Sometimes you want to if it was a bad situation. Okay, the next tip on this benefit of new experiences is that it's a fresh start with yourself, right? You get to see yourself in new environments and you get to learn more about yourself. The more you go into different environments, it can kind of open your eyes, because what happens is it's like you start to discover what's actually you and what was just your environment. And so I want to explain what I mean by that. But imagine that you just assume I like to party every single night. And then you move somewhere else and you're like, oh, actually, I don't like to party every single night. That was just my group of friends. I prefer a quiet evening at home and only partying every now and then. Whatever it may be, when you change environments, you realize what was me and what was just the circle that I was with, what was just the environment that I was in. And so, what if you say, like, you might think to yourself that you're lazy, you change environments and you actually love to work. Like, oh, I just was surrounded by lazy people and I was letting them affect me, or I had a job that I just wasn't good at, so I didn't pour myself into it. Well, now I actually realize I can be a hard worker because I'm in a different environment. Some people, on a downer note, some people think that they're Christians and then they go off into the world, they leave their family when they grow up, and then it turns out they never actually knew God. Their parents knew God and they just were being obedient to their parents. So again, sometimes what's you and what's your environment? Do you actually know God, or is it just your family who knows God? What's actually your personality? What's just your environment? Again, there's many things. I'm not saying it's all good or bad. It can just be neutral, where the more you move, you start to figure out what's me and what's not me. And the more you figure out what's you and what's at your core, it can help you grow. Because now you can realize, I actually don't like this, so I'm going to find this kind of friend. I actually don't like that. You can be more intentional about what you like, what you don't like, which areas you want to grow in, which areas you don't. One example for this is like movie stars. And I don't mean every actor, but like really famous movie stars. Some people complain about this, but I don't mind it, where it's like they have the same personality in every single movie. And I don't mind, because it's like, well, yeah, but I like their personality. So I want to see that movie star as a cowboy, and now I want to see that movie star as a detective, and now that movie star as a superhero, and now that same person it's their same personality, but different environments. It's kind of like that. Every time you go into a new experience, you kind of realize what was me and what was just the setting that I was in. And again, I find it very insightful to start to learn that stuff, because I've been in circles where I'm really quiet, and I've been in circles where I'm the loudest one. I've been in circles where I'm the funny one. I've been in circles where I'm the serious one. I've been in circles, sometimes I'm the dumbest person in the room, and sometimes I'm the smartest person in the room. Most of the time, that's my situation. Just kidding. Especially now, looking at everybody. No, but again, you start to realize, like, there's been settings where, like, I might be the strongest student in the class, and then I've been times where I'm the person barely hanging in there. And so I realize, what changes about me? It kind of helps you get some insight in growing in life, is having some insight about who you are at your core, regardless of circumstances. And it also shows you there might be things that you think are your environment that aren't, right? If you have drama with your family and friends, and you move somewhere else and you have drama with them, you move somewhere else, you have drama with them, you move somewhere else, you have drama with them, it's probably you, right? You're taking it with everyone, so you're like, I need to grow free from this. If every relationship you're in, you're like, man, every single time I date someone, it turns out they're crazy, over and over and over and over. It's like, well, maybe you're crazy, or maybe you're a crazy magnet for some reason, or maybe for some reason you're attracted to crazy. And so it kind of, okay, I need to be set free from this. What is it about me? Because obviously it must be me if there's a pattern here, where if every single person I know is a jerk, maybe I'm actually the jerk. Right? And so you can kind of detect weaknesses and strengths, and so it can give you insight on areas to grow. The last one I'll mention is that it's easier to see your momentum in your growth in life. Each time you have a new experience, you can kind of see, again, it's a fresh start. So if you realize, wow, people are treating me differently, I didn't realize how much I've grown. And you go somewhere else, man, I didn't realize that I overcame this, I overcame that. It's always interesting to see, like, these people, they see me this way. I didn't realize that that's how I came across to people now, because I still saw myself the way I was 10 years ago. So it's easier to see your momentum. yeah, if you're consistently stepping out of the boat, you might not realize it when you start to become a faith giant, right? If you're hanging out with all these super strong Christians and you feel like you're always trying to keep up, then you change environments and you realize, actually, I've grown a lot. I'm actually a faith giant too, because people are coming to me and I realize I'm actually stronger in this than I realized. So it's easier to see your momentum, positive or negative, when you keep going into new experiences, because you kind of get fresh perspective. And it's very easy to get locked in and just see things how they've always been instead of seeing how much things have changed right now. So I hope that's helpful. Again, I encourage you to try new things and to really give it some thought. I like to debrief. I like to write down my thoughts at the end of every year especially, but even at the end of every month or week or whatever. It's kind of personal debriefs and like, how am I growing? What are my goals for how much I want to grow even more? And just kind of thinking about that. And that's where I found like fresh starts really help me become more aware of things like that. I want to wrap up with a little bit of Q&A before we finish this episode. And so this question here is, what are the best strategies for learning new skills quickly and effectively? I mean, that's kind of different for different people, but learning new skills, I'd say doing it. Doing it for real. It's one thing to study things, but I found that one of the best ways to learn for real is when there's real stakes, right? Instead of saying, I'm going to study programming, I'm just going to study it and study it and study it. Come up with a project and say, I want to build a little program that does this. Instead of studying playing the guitar, try and learn an actual song, right? It's like when you have a real goal, then you start to learn other things that help you get there. So I would say try to learn while doing things for real. There's a place for theory, but then try and doing things for real. It's kind of like if you study ministry for 10 years, you won't advance as much as if you just actually start ministering, right? Study a little bit, but then once you get a good foundation, go out and start practicing while you study and you'll grow much more. How do I know when to take risks and when to play it safe in my career? Well, that's a good question, because in your career, it kind of depends where you are in life. Because say if you are providing for your family, you might not want to make a major risk. Obviously, if it's God telling you to do it, then it's not a risk because you have a word from God. But you don't necessarily want to do crazy things or major adjustments where your family gets whiplash, where it's like, hey, guess what? I decided to quit this and start all from scratch. It's like, no, you have a responsibility, so you do need to be more intentional. But I'd say when you're young, when you have fewer responsibilities, try new things. I think that's the best way to go about it. Other than that, I'd say you have to be really, really sure. And sometimes you even want to start doing both at the same time, where like if you have a very risky goal, maybe start doing it in your free time instead of giving up everything you've built so far. So I'm going to start building this a little bit on the side. And once I see that it's actually successful, I'll jump from this one over to this other thing. And so I do think that taking risks is important. I guess more like leaps of faith. If it's just a risk of just gambling, I don't think that's worth it. But I do think that it can be valuable if God tells you to like, man, I know I've pursued this. I really want to make a leap over here. Again, talk about God with it. But again, sometimes you just have to go for it, but you have to balance that out with how it affects the people around you also. So I hope that's helpful. We'll see you next time. Hope you have an amazing day. Don't forget to go to gooddayGTN.com to get your free booklet on how to become a water walker, and we'll see you next time.